What up, Buffalo fanatics, Z-Bots, Z here with you live. No, not again. Come on. Man, every time I go live, my internet lags out. What's this? Z-Bot, you gotta start using NordVPN for your streams. It will help speed up your internet. 2-year plan is 70% off at the bfvpn.com, and you get your first month free. Kingpin knows best. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Z-Bot back with you with better than ever internet connection thanks to NordVPN. The best live streams use the best internet connection. Visit the bfpn.com to take advantage of 70% off a 2-year plan with your first month free.
Kingpin, and you're listening to the Air Raid Hour of Buffalo Fanatics Video Experience.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. And before we even get started off, Dave, this is incredible. I think that we have already 60 plus comments in the comment section before our show even goes live. So absolutely incredible, and kudos to you all. We will welcome you in a second. But first, my name is Steve Mathis. You can find me, as always, on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. Together, we are the Bills guys, and this is the Air Raid Hour presented by Buffalo Fanatics and NordVPN. And let's take a look at who's in the house. We got King Thriller. He was first. We got to give him credit. He was first. Jason Humbert, Maurice Anderson back in the house. Always like to see you, Maurice. Richard Rush, Buffalo Bat saying that Chicago game's got him feeling some kind of way. King Thriller made the same comment. We're going to get to that in a second, boys. Don't you worry. Don Keith in the house, D Handsome, Corey Buffalo. We got Y, Jack Baker, Carolina Frank, Richard Forbes, Noah Rice. We got Tilt Money just making comments in the comment section before the show even starts. Brian Bowers in the building as well. Chris Janke. And a slew of others. Odd, Chris S., Smiles Blake, Buffalo Bootleg in the building, John Herring, Joseph Tillman. So, more Lone Wolf, Jeff King, welcome in, Colin Kuko, a whole bunch. And if I missed you, I do apologize. Look, my dad's in the house. My dad's watching, so I guess I got to watch the language here on the show. But ladies and gentlemen, let's start off the bat because a bunch of you said the Buffalo Bills mauled the Chicago Bears. That was a great headline that you created, by the way. I like that. Mauled the Chicago Bears. That's all, Dave. But Jay Davis coming in says, is that Steve and Dave in the same show? No way. Yep, we're back. Don't worry.
Look, guys, I'm moving, and so my house, I had to pack it all up. My entire house was packed up, had to be ready for people to come in and see it. Had a ton of people come in over the weekend. Thankfully, we got under contract, and now I'm just kind of chilling and waiting until we move. So my stuff's set back up again. I'm here for at least the next several shows until I actually move into the new place, and then I might miss one more. But yes, I'm back for now.
Nice. And then, so the Chicago Bears, Buffalo Bills 45, Chicago Bears 15. Let me read off some statistics to you. The Buffalo Bills offense, 280 yards and 19 first downs in the first half. The Buffalo Bills defense allowed 145 yards and 0 third down conversions. The score was 34-6 at halftime. My wife walked in on me Sunday morning at 7 a.m. She's like, you never get up before me. She's like, you never get up before me. She walks in the living room. She's like, what are you doing? I'm sitting there watching the condensed version of the football game. She's like, are you kidding me? Sunday mornings are my morning. She gets to like make her coffee. She gets to watch Long Island Medium. I don't want to talk about that. That show just makes me all kinds of angry. Just hearing that lady in the background while I sleep in. That's usually our Sunday morning routine. She's like, what the hell are you? She was like, what the hell are you doing on my couch? But I was just so amped and ready. I tried to watch the Bills game like 2 hours after it aired. I tried to watch it again, but it was like delayed on the NFL Game Pass. So I finally just went about my business. I had my birthday dinner that night, came back Sunday morning, woke up, ate some leftover birthday cake, and watched the Buffalo Bills stomp the Chicago Bears all over again. And just a whole bunch of things that we need to talk about. Chris Jenkins says a 58% pressure rate in the first half. We're going to get to those defensive ends as well. But first, I think we gotta start with this. If you're someone on Twitter who's like, Jake Kumro is going to be wide receiver number 2 for this football team, okay, yeah, you're wrong. But if you're someone who's saying, oh, Jake Kumro is overhyped, you're also wrong. This dude is going to be wide receiver 6. He's going to play all 4 phases of special teams, and he's a stone cold lock on this football team right now. He is miles ahead of Marquez Stevenson. The top 6 are locked in. Marquez Stevenson does not have a shot to make this roster as currently constructed unless the Buffalo Bills keep 7 wide receivers or somebody gets injured. Explain to me Marquez Stevenson's path to this roster.
So
what role does he play? What role does he play?
I don't care about
He's
that.
not returning kicks. He's not returning kicks. He's not returning punts because that's Isaiah McKenzie's job. And he'll be inactive on game day if he even makes the roster. What's Marquez Stevenson's path to playing time on this team? Because I can tell you Jake Kumro's path to playing time. I can tell you Isaiah McKenzie's. I can tell you Gabriel Davis's. I can tell you Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders. I can't tell you what Marquez Stevenson's path to playing time is because he's got no shot at any playing time for this Buffalo Bills team. None, unless there are injuries.
Directed towards the sideline. The speedy Stevenson has it. There he goes. Marquez Stevenson, an absolute top-end speed burner. And Marquez Stevenson has taken it to the house for a 70.
I've made a huge mistake.
So anyone who watched the show on Thursday knows that Casey Reed likes to get under my skin. And we were having a nice, hot and heated conversation. And I might have made a couple of hot takes on Jake Kumro. I'm not taking him back. I just wanted to have a little bit of fun with that, but I'm not taking it back. The conversation I want to have with you is this, and I want to hear yours. I want to hear your comments before I sort of go into why I think that Jake Kumro is still a stone cold lock for this football team. What are your thoughts on the wide receiver situation? Is it going to be 6 guys and somebody we're going to have to bite the bullet and cut somebody, or maybe trade Jake Kumro back to the Green Bay Packers? We all know Aaron Rodgers would love that. Or do the Buffalo Bills consider keeping 7 wide receivers?
I mean, I think they have to strongly consider keeping 7. You look at the way Kumro has been deployed so far in the first 2 games, and he's played with the starting unit. Like, we know Diggs, Beasley, Sanders haven't been in there, but he's pretty much the first guy out there every game so far. So he is trusted right now by the coaching staff, and he's trusted to be essentially the main wide receiver with those top 3 guys out. Now, Gabriel Davis is obviously still there, and let's not pretend like he's not like really kind of the quote number 4. But you have to look at it and say, with the way they've been using Kumro in the preseason, that he's as close to a lock to make the team as maybe anyone else, as far as like the guys who have actually played in the preseason, Stevenson, McKenzie, right? Like, you have to say that Kumro is ahead of them right now. Mm-hmm. Now, I do like the idea of the Bills keeping 7 wide receivers, and we've talked about this a number of times in the offseason when we say, like, okay, well, what kind of group do we think the Bills want to put together? Okay, well, we need a speed guy. We need someone who can return kicks and punts. And the whole thought process was that if McKenzie could return kicks and punts, then maybe we wouldn't have to kind of, quote, waste a roster spot on that 7th wide receiver. If McKenzie is that guy that's going to return kicks and punts, I could still very much see a situation where Stevenson and Hodgins both don't make the team. At this point, we're not even really talking about Isaiah Hodgins, which is funny, right? Because he was kind of the darling of he was the darling of the offseason and OTAs. But look, Stevenson did what he needed to do in that game against the Bears to make a case to make the team. Kumro really, I mean, he's caught touchdowns, but he hasn't really caught a ton of passes. I think it was his only catch the entire game. And Stevenson is that top.
That toe tapper. Don't forget the toe tapper.
Okay, toe tapper. You're right. I was recalling Casey Reed's text, and it just the one for four. Yeah, stuck out. And the thing is that Stevenson has a different skill set, right, than pretty much any other guy on the team. So if you want to make the case to keep 7, you keep Stevenson as that speed element. And Jay Davis says we also need to, I guess for the future beyond Cole and Sanders, keeping 7 locks down the core receiving room. It's interesting, right? Because the Bills depth chart, they list McKenzie as a slot, but they list Stevenson as an outside receiver. So, but if you watch him on that punt return, like he's got some like, you know, he's not a slender dude. Like he's got some size to him, like some stoutness to him, and he's still that fast. So it's very interesting, man. 7 wide receivers would be kind of unprecedented for McDermott. Granted, it's only been 4 seasons here with him, but I could definitely see a path where that happens.
I'm going with Jay Davis here, and I switched my Twitter handle to 7 wide receivers. Bills keep 7 wide receivers fan club, because now I'm sort of on the 7 wide receiver bandwagon, and Jay is spot on here. We don't know Cole Beasley's future beyond this season, or Emmanuel Sanders' future beyond the season. Heck, we don't know Jake Kumro's or Isaiah McKenzie's, because they're both free agents as well. I would like to see the Buffalo Bills lock up Isaiah McKenzie mid-season, get him secured. I think he has proven in his growth, and we saw it in this preseason game, that he's much more than just a gadget guy / return man. I think that Isaiah McKenzie could legitimately be the heir apparent to Cole Beasley. Look no further than Isaiah McKenzie when replacing Cole Beasley. So if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I might look to re-up him mid-season and get some term on him so he can outlast Cole Beasley here. Emmanuel Sanders, it's coming out now that he's got that ankle injury or that foot injury or whatever. So who knows if he'll be able to play like 100% of the snaps this year. He'll be rotating with Gabriel Davis. Maybe he might have to miss a week or 2 or 3 here or there. Stephon Diggs is dealing with that knee. So a whole bunch of things leads me to believe that maybe 7 wide receivers might be the wisest choice for this football team. I mean, if you look at it, right, Isaiah McKenzie, lock. He's the slot guy. He's the gadget guy that you use on those end arounds. And at the same time, I know he muffed the return. I know he muffed his return, but he also had 2 very good returns. And Sean McDermott says he likes the way that Isaiah McKenzie rebounded from that one muff. If you look to the training camp reports and the practice reports, it was Isaiah McKenzie who was fielding them fine, and it was Marquez Stevenson in practice who was shaky and wobbly on kick and punt returns. So that being said, you got Isaiah McKenzie, a guy who had 2 really good returns against the Bears starting special teams units, guys who will actually be on the Chicago Bears this year, whereas Marquez Stevenson had 1 really good punt return against a bunch of guys who probably will be out of a job in about 2 weeks. And, you know, Chris Jenke mentioned the punter outkicked his coverage. There was no one near him, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we're going to get to your comment in a second here, Jeff King. McKenzie is still the return guy. And it's going to take a couple more of those muffs in the regular season for McKenzie to lose that job. So Stevenson, what's he going to do? If he takes Jake Kumro's spot, who's that 4-phase special teamer? Who is that? Who's that other guy? Like, Kumro showed exactly why he's going to make this football team. He's got inside-outside flex. You saw him catch a touchdown pass last year from the slot, but he's been playing all of this year from the X position. He plays all 4 phases of special teams. He had a great play on Jalen Johnson, a guy both of us loved in the pre-draft process. Beat him off the line of scrimmage at the goal line, sealed him off, used his size, caught that touchdown pass from Mitchell Trubisky. So absolute kudos to Jake Kumro. He did exactly what he needs to do. Keep that 7th guy. Stevenson can be the backup kick returner, punt returner. He can be an extra boundary guy for some speed if Emmanuel Sanders or Stephon Diggs have to miss times, and he can be inactive and he can continue to develop, and you don't risk losing him. So I don't see anything wrong with keeping 7 wide receivers, because we're going to get to this in a little bit. I don't really think Matt Breida needs to be on this football team, but let's move past receivers here and let's get to Jeff King, Super Chat. I always appreciate you, Jeff. He says he's got limited time tonight. So Let's see what he wants to talk about. He says, my question, gentlemen, does Obata make this roster? Because I love his game. Like Denzel, he's a man on fire. He brings it. My apologies for getting off subject, but that's all right, because we're going to talk about defensive ends tonight as well. So here are some of the stats that I had from our defensive ends that I got as I was scouring Twitter. First of all, you had Rousseau, Basham, and Epinesa pop again. You had these guys pop again. That NASCAR package is the real deal. Like, it's not something that was a figment of our imagination this offseason. It looks like it's going to be a reality once the regular season starts, with all of that length and that strength along our defensive line. Epinesa had that big beat on Wilkinson, the starting left tackle, to force the Andy Dalton, what looked like at first like a fumble, but was really just a pass that was thrown off a helmet. Rousseau showed his physical prowess, and he showed again that it really trumps his maybe lack of experience, because he absolutely used that length to get his one sack, and he was chasing Andy Dalton around on a couple of those drives. Boogie Basham rebounded, blocked an extra point, showed his inside-outside flex. AJ had on 10 pass rushes, had 3 hurries, 1 hit. Rousseau had a sack, a hit, and a hurry on 7 pass rushes. Boogie had a sack, a hit, 3 hurries on 33 pass rushes. And then Obata had a hit, 6 hurries, and 32 on 32 pass rushes. My question is, Daryl Johnson playing really good as well too. Where does Obata fit in? Do we go with 3 defensive tackles? Do we keep 11 guys along the defensive line? Is Obata the odd man out? Like, just like Jeff King mentioned, like what do we do here?
I'll tell you what we do, and it's speculation, but you could see Harrison Phillips head to the IR potentially. That's a possibility. I think he injured the same knee that he hurt 2 years ago, and yes, Randy says Butler may have been saved by the Phillips injury, but if you're talking about trying to find a way to keep Obata and Daryl Johnson, and you're trying to find make the numbers game work, it could be that Phillips goes to IR, Butler's gone, and then you have 3 defensive tackles in Oliver, Starr, and a guy like Zimmer, right? Or maybe it's Oliver, Starr, and Butler, right? And maybe Zimmer's the odd man out. But it is a way for you to get Obata and Daryl Johnson both on the team, because then you put you've got Addison, Hughes, Epinesa, Groot, Basham, Johnson, and Obata kind of becomes your 4th, we'll call it sort of hybrid guy, like defensive tackle / defensive end. And then you're right, you have a chance to keep potentially 11 defensive linemen on this roster, right? Because in that situation, no, I guess that's only 10, right? That's 7 defensive ends and 3 tackles. So you'd only have to keep 10 in that situation, right? If Phillips is on IR and you get rid of either one of Butler or Zimmer.
And that's the interesting too. And kudos to Chris Kroenke. He's the one who has this information over the days. And let me pull it up in my notes here. The Buffalo Bills have really 4 vested veterans who I think have a good chance of making this football team. Jacob Hollister, Isaiah McKenzie, Taiwan Jones. I'm sorry, only 3 vested veterans. So you could see a situation where Taiwan Jones gets cut on cutdown day, right? And Harrison Phillips makes the football team, and then Harrison Phillips immediately gets put on IR, which you can bring him back after 3 weeks.
Yes, as opposed to putting him now, which would cost him the year. Yes,
the whole year. Yeah. And Taiwan Jones is re-signed. You just sort of have a wink, wink, nudge, nudge agreement. So that's something that could work out, and that could buy you some time until like week 3 or 4 to really have to make that decision with defensive tackles. We'll have the conversation about Vernon Butler in a little bit because Zimmer was banged up, but that seems to be the route we're going to go, because I don't think Harrison Phillips is going to be ready for week 1. I mean, he might. It's a week-to-week injury, but that's the Buffalo Bills wanting to go with a guy coming off an injury right at the start of the season. My question is this, like, Boogie Basham has said the Buffalo Bills goal weight for him is 265. And he's currently looks like he's probably 275, 280, kind of what he played at in college. He looked pretty good on the inside at his sort of bulked up weight. Should the Buffalo Bills maybe turn to Boogie Basham and say, listen, let's not start shedding yet. Let's maybe play half this season or a quarter of this season as the 3 tech as a offensive end, and now Basham's way onto the football field, and he waits till midseason or he waits till next off season to start that shedding process, because once Jerry Hughes, once Mario Addison are gone, the lanes are cleared for him to lose that weight and be just a pure defensive end. But right now, I think Boogie Basham has more value to the Buffalo Bills as a defensive tackle, and he played pretty decently against the Chicago Bears in that inside role. Especially with a guy like Harrison Phillips going down, if we want to get a guy like Vernon Butler off this roster.
Yeah, and he could be kind of that Obata type, right? Where he can flex inside and out. And like you said, he played pretty well coming from the inside there. And I think in the long run, you are going to want him to come down probably to that 265. Randy says you absolutely want him down to 260 as soon as possible. And I understand that. I totally understand that, because I do think for the long term, that's probably where you want him, and you want him to be that pressure guy from the outside. But we also thought that Rousseau was going to be a guy that we'd see flex inside a bit too, but we've seen most of his damage come from purely on the edge. So maybe that gives the Bills some options now with Boogie Basham to say, look, we're going to keep you fit. We're going to keep you in shape. We're going to keep you at your weight you are now. Gives the Bills flexibility throughout the season, at least early in the season. It gives them flexibility with the injury to Phillips. And you've seen Rousseau do most of his damage, or pretty much all of his damage, to start the preseason from the edge, right? He hasn't really done his damage from the inside, where we thought he could also flex. So if I'm the Bills, I may slow that shedding down as well. But I do think long term he will come down, and that makes sense. So I can understand why people do want him to come down now.
All right, and we got a comment here, a super chat here from Paulie Crew, and I do apologize, Paulie, that it took us a while to get to it, but he says he agrees about Matt Breida and possibly having Matt Breida on the chopping block. The nonchalant, non-touchdown run, which it was actually a screen pass, but a lot of yards have to carry on that screen pass, was frustrating. Keep killing him. And one of the things that I noticed, and he has some plays where he does a good job of going north, south, but he has some other plays where he kind of looks like CJ Spiller, where he's just trying to go east and west and pop it outside, and it's just not there. So Devin Singletary had another big game. The vision and the contact balance that you saw from him his rookie season is back. That 4th and 1 touchdown was incredible. You had Zach Moss showing a pretty decent burst for a guy who spent his entire offseason rehabbing. It looks like Singletary can be your vision and contact balance guy. It looks like Zach Moss can be your between the tackles guy, because that 4th and 1 run that he had, where he kept his body over top of the offensive lineman and sort of just backwards over to pick up that first down, was just as impressive as his long run to the goal line. So it seems like you got your between the tackles guy. It seems like you got your vision and contact balance guy. Both of these guys can contribute in the passing game, and Zach Moss is a really good pass protector. The Buffalo Bills are probably going to be 60-40 pass to run minimum, right?
Yeah.
Do we really need Matt Breida? Do we really need TJ Yeldon 2.0? Unless Matt Breida starts returning kicks or something, which we haven't seen yet, do we really need him? If he's going to play such a minor role, if he might be inactive every week, like, wouldn't we just be better off with Antonio Williams on the practice squad to be called up in case of an injury?
I mean, probably. But I think the way we've seen the Bills handle this in the past is they're going to keep that third running back. That's a running back, not Taiwan Jones, and they're going to keep him inactive on game days. So the only chance that, you have is that Breida has enough of a differentiating skill set to where he's not TJ Yeldon 2.0. He can actually bring something to the table that TJ Yeldon couldn't, which is speed. And maybe there are certain weeks where you want to use him. Now, is that worth keeping him on the initial 53? Probably, right? And Chris makes a good point around Moss's injury history. Like, I think you want a veteran like Breida to be available at a moment's notice should you need him. Now, the problem you're going to have is if someone gets injured during the game and he's a game day inactive, it's not really going to help you, right? Yeah. It's only going to help you if that injury becomes like a long-term thing. So it's definitely a delicate balance. I think he probably is more likely to make the team than not, but you wouldn't see me be too upset if he ended up not making the team and the Bills ended up just going with Singletary, Moss, and then Tywan Jones as a special teamer, and then they had a guy like Antonio Williams on the practice squad. I do kind of want to see Breida do a little bit more in this third game against the Packers. I assume he's going to get some playing time. I'd like to see what he's going to do. And Richard says we've not seen what they have planned for Breida, but he isn't showing me much. He was okay in that Lions game, right? He didn't do anything poorly, but he didn't like flash off the screen to you, right? So for your third running back, that's okay, but I think some of us wanted to see a little bit more from him, a little more pop from him in the opportunities. So very interesting going to be with what happens with him.
I just have a feeling like Matt Breida is not going to make this 53-man roster. Call me crazy. I just think he's not going to make it. Now, the interesting thing is, as Chris Jenke says, you're going to see plenty of Kareth White in that Packers game, probably Antonio Williams if he's healthy as well. I don't think the Buffalo Bills are planning on playing very many starters against the Green Bay Packers. It looks like it's going to be the scrub show. So if they're not going to pay Matt Breida, does that think Matt Breida is safe? I don't know. It seems like most of the people who are in the know, the beat reporters and stuff, are putting Matt Breida on their 53-man. I have a feeling like he's not going to be on the 53-man because, and that doesn't mean he's off this football team either, right? Maybe he could play that TJ Yeldon role of a game day inactive from the practice squad. There are so many running backs in the National Football League, like so many good ones. And is there really even going to be a market for Matt Breida if the Buffalo Bills cut him? He signed a 1-year minimal deal with the Buffalo Bills. It's not exactly like there was a free agent market for Matt Breida. There's going to be a ton of Matt Breida type of running backs who are going to be cut in the next few weeks. TJ Yeldon is still sitting on the streets. Todd Gurley is still sitting on the streets. There are plenty of running backs who are still sitting on the streets. Could Matt Breida easily just be cut and be one of the veterans that goes to the practice squad because you can have up to 6 of them? So maybe we don't have to waste a roster spot for Matt Breida. Like, hey, Matt, go test the market. If there's something out there for you, go for it. Good. But guess what? You have an invitation back to this practice squad. We won't protect you. We promise not to protect you every week. So if another team does come a call and you can go, we're not gonna stop you from getting an opportunity. But as somebody else wants you, as long as the market for you, stay healthy on our practice. Just come stay in shape on our practice squad, and you can be our TJ Yeldon. Not going to waste a roster spot on you. I think it's a perfect situation. So I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Breida does make the team, but it's just the practice squad. Jeff King coming in saying, gentlemen, thank you. As always, got to run. Fanatics, health, and happiness to you and yours. Be well, folks. Go Bills. Thank you, Jeff King. As always, Jeff King, the man, as always. Always appreciate you and the support you show us here at the Buffalo Fanatics. But yeah, would not be surprised if Singletary doesn't play in preseason game number 3. Jason, it's looking like no one's going to be playing in that preseason game number 3, which is unfortunate because I'm going to be there. So we're actually having a meeting of the minds tomorrow where we're going to get everything squared away, and then we'll get you guys the details on Thursday just about like where we're tailgating, where we're sitting in the stadium, all that good stuff, where we're going afterwards because we got to pick a place to go and get some beverages afterwards. And then obviously we'll be at that golf tournament at Harvest Hill on Sunday, the Buffalo Fanatics, Joe Kroom. I almost said Jason Kroom, golf tournament. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Stevie Johnson will be there. Jordan Poyer will be there. Gabriel Davis will be there. Heck of a lot of fun. We'll be there. Zebot, Clay, me, you, Pierre. It's going to be a heck of a time there at Harvest Hill on Sunday. But I'll tell you what, my flight leaves at 11:40 Phoenix time. I get into Detroit at like 6 a.m. and then I'm landing in Buffalo at like 9:40 p.m. Or I'm sorry, a.m.
Wait, then, so you're flying overnight?
Oh, I'm doing a straight up red eye, dude. Straight up red eye. I'm gonna try to sleep on the plane, but I don't really sleep on planes very well. And then I'm pretty much straight going from the airport to the game, and then from the game out to the bars.
You're gonna crash so hard.
And then from the bars to my bed, and my childhood bed at my parents' house. Then straight to the golf tournament, and then probably straight back to my childhood bed, and then literally flying Monday morning back to Phoenix. So it's going to be a long 2 weeks, but a long 2 days, but I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of you guys from the comment section if you're going to be in Buffalo for that game as well. And if you're not going to be there for the game, if you're in Buffalo, come on out. I mean, Pearl Street, Riverworks, We'll find a bar, we'll pick a bar, we'll hit it up, and we'll have a good time out. What Jeff Danger? What's Jeff Danger saying? There's going to be a what? Do we need to?
Let's bring it out.
Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
That will most definitely probably be me at some point. That will be me at some point on either Saturday night or maybe on the golf cart on Sunday.
I think on the golf course is going to be very interesting with me, you, Pierre, and Clay out there, and Z-Bot's going to be roaming around. I think talking to people and doing stuff, but it's going to be fun, man. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, let's talk about some other things, and I wanted to talk a little bit about, because we got Pierre in the chat, so I wanted to talk a little bit about Dawson Knox versus Jacob Hollister. Now, Pierre was feeling himself in the BF family chat today, and he was throwing down some money. I think he's got about $200 in bets between Casey Reed and Kyle Knapp and a couple of other people. Pierre wagered with people that Jacob Hollister is going to be TE1 by the end of the season, and he's going to have better statistics than Dawson Knox. Now, my take here is that for all the people saying that they're really impressed from Jacob Hollister, that's awesome. I'm really impressed with Jacob Hollister as well. He's another guy where I'd like the Buffalo Bills to lock him up long term, because I think he could be a TE2 here for a really long time. Really close with Josh Allen, has that comfortability with Josh Allen from Wyoming. He's a decent run blocker. He's a decent guy to catch the ball, get some yak. He's a decent guy to work the middle of the field. He's a perfect TE2 in my opinion. But as well as he played, barring injury, Jacob Hollister is not going to be the week 1 starter. Dawson Knox is going to get every opportunity to be that guy, because Dawson Knox has a way higher ceiling than Jacob Hollister. And I know Dawson Knox worries people. He worries me too, but it's his job to lose. So unless Dawson Knox gets injured, unless Dawson Knox gets the dropsies early on in the season, unless Dawson Knox starts piling up penalty after penalty after penalty, becomes a liability, and maybe gets yanked like the Buffalo Bills did a little bit for Tyler Kroft midseason last year, I just don't see it happening. And right now, like, Dawson Knox hasn't looked terrible. He's had a couple of drops here and there, but it's not like he's had like memorable drops, right? Like that drop in the Chicago game, Casey Reed said it, like he made a business decision. Dude was about to get walloped, so he dropped the football. Like, you've seen him make some really good catches so far in training camp. If Dawson Knox was getting outworked by Jacob Hollister in practice, the way that Jacob Hollister has been putting up statistics in the preseason, Jacob Hollister be getting reps with the ones, and Dawson Knox be playing football games longer in the preseason. But the way that they've used them in the preseason tells me that Dawson Knox is doing what he needs to do in practice to be TE1. So barring the injury or the drops or the penalties, I don't know if Jacob Hollister is going to have the targets to outcatch Dawson Knox, because he's just going to be the TE2.
I mean, Pierre should have gotten some odds, I think, on that from those guys. I know he bet them straight up, but if I was Pierre, I would have asked for, some 3-2, 2-1 type odds on that. Because, I mean, look at last year, right? I mean, with Kroft and Knox, and we feel like Hollister is maybe an upgrade over Kroft. I mean, it's funny. I was thinking about like the two and comparing them, and I always think about that Knox run, the angry run against the Bengals. And then I watched the highlights and rewatched the game of the Bears game, and Hollister trying to hurdle over that dude. And it just shows you like that dude couldn't jump over a sheet of paper. So it's just, I mean, I saw Don make a comment about how they're about equal as far as ceiling, but I have to disagree with that. Like Knox's ceiling is way higher. For him, it's mental. We've said this plenty of times. And she's right. Does it really matter who's T1 or T2? T's are an afterthought. And Pierre's argument in the chat was like, if we had a reliable tight end, we'd use him more over the middle, and we wouldn't have to constantly rely on guys like Beasley over the middle, and we could actually create some mismatches with the tight ends. And that's part of it, right? Is that there needs to be self-confidence in Knox, but the team also has to have confidence in him, right? So for me, the order goes, Knox has to have confidence in himself, show he can do it repeatedly and consistently, then the team will have confidence. We're judging the hurdle. Hey, I mean, it was terrible. You got to admit, it was not good. It was not good. But with that said, I have been impressed with Hollister in the preseason. He's done everything you've asked him to do. He's made the catches. He caught the 2-point conversion. He's got good hands in the red zone. He is going to be a Tyler Kroft type guy for this team, maybe with a little bit more reliability and upside than Tyler Kroft. Justin says, Hollister hasn't shown me enough to say he can take over Knox. Everyone looks good against 2-3. And this is, I think, getting to what you're saying. Like, if he was really lighting it up that much, he would be starting in these games.
His two catches, he was wide open over the middle of the football field, so clearly there was a screw up in coverage. And it was a dump off that he had a bunch of space in front of him where he ran. Now, I will give him credit on that 2-point conversion. He had filthy short area separation the linebacker. That was a really impressive play. But the other two, I felt like if Dawson Knox was on the football field, you're getting the same thing from Dawson Knox, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say this again, and it's going to sound hyperbolic, but all I'm saying is it's like Jacob Hollister's ceiling is a mediocre tight end 1, a nice reliable pass catcher, a guy who can block, ideally a TE2. Dawson Knox's ceiling is George Kittle. Like, that's what about this? That's the physical ability that he has. And you're going to give that dude every chance through his first contract to try to meet that ceiling.
What about this comment here? Does the ceiling equation have to account for the mental side, right? And the confidence? Because Truth to Heart says, doesn't mentality or mental strength have something to do with ceiling? If Knox is more athletic but lacks mental strength, then what is his ceiling? I don't know. Like, I mean, it's a good point. I mean,
but he's going to get more leads.
Is it fair to? Is it one and the same to say that like the mental issue he has with the drops is a confidence issue or a mental hurdle? I would say yes. It probably is. Yeah. It has to be, right? Yeah. And I think it's a great point. I think it all has to factor in. You're right, but like physically, that's where you go to first when you look at these things. And it's clear physically he has it. So
and Jeff, he says, I don't know about Kittle. I'm talking strictly physical attributes, his athletic ability, his testing numbers, etc. That is where the ceiling is so much higher, and that's why he's going to get such a longer leash. But you're right. Like if that, and that's where I am giving. I'm giving Pierre leeway. Like, I'm not saying Pierre is going to be wrong, but what I'm saying is Jacob Hollister, anyone who thinks Jacob Hollister is going to start the season being the guy who gets his face up there on the CBS graphic because he's the starting tight end for the Buffalo Bills is, barring injury, you're not going to see his face up there on that graphic in the first month of the season. They're going to give Dawson Knox those shots, and it's going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks, sustained drops, sustained penalties, sustained mental lapses for a guy like Jacob Hollister to supersede the physical attributes that Dawson Knox brings to this offense. The Buffalo Bills are going to give Dawson Knox every chance. We got Eric Austin Phelps coming in saying, thanks for keeping us up to date. We appreciate you, Eric, and thank you for that super chat. Anything we can do, if you want to get a comment or a question, anything you want in, hit us up in the comment section and we'll post whatever you want. But we do appreciate you for giving us that praise there. We're just having fun, man. Love to get on here every Monday, Thursday night and talk Buffalo Bills football with 150 awesome people in the comment section. Truth to Heart's coming back. What's he saying here?
Yeah, he's saying athleticism over production and consistency. It's Andre Roberts and McKenzie argument you guys made. I will say this. I don't think McKenzie's I wouldn't say McKenzie's physical ceiling is that much more than Andre Roberts, honestly. I mean,
more speed,
from a kick,
more top end speed, yeah. But that's
from a kick return, punt return standpoint, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, overall, maybe athleticism, he's more. Actually, truth to hearts, this reminds me, we still got to figure out we got to like arrange this bet officially. I think we said, what was it? I get Andre Roberts total kick return yards for the Texans this year, and you get total kick return yards combined for all Bills players, I think was the bet, and whoever's higher. And we'll figure out the terms separately, but I think that's the bet we said. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
And then we got Pierre coming in saying, who really knows who will win that bet, but I wouldn't put it past the offense going to the hot hand, and Dawson hasn't had hands to get hot. All right.
That's true. That's a good point.
We got a couple people who've come in and talked about this, so let's get to this now. Jason Taylor coming in saying, I'm assuming putting Lamp on IR is the equivalent to a roster cut. So the Buffalo Bills made two moves today. They waived injured Duke Williams, and they also waived they put Forrest Lamp on injured reserve. So essentially what's going to happen is they're probably going to reach an injury settlement with Forrest Lamp, because even though it's a calf injury, it's probably not a season-ending calf injury.
Right.
So the Buffalo Bills could re-sign Forrest Lamp 5, 6, 7 weeks down the road, or he can go sign with another football team. Duke Williams, since he's waived with an injury designation, which means he's injured, he goes through the waiver process. And if he makes it through, which he probably will, he'll come back to the Buffalo Bills, and the Buffalo Bills will either release him with an injury settlement, which I think it's about time they do that, or they'll put him on injured reserve and end his season. So it'll be interesting to see how the Duke Williams situation ends up, but it's looking more and more likely like Forrest Lamp was all bark and no bite. Something that a lot of people look forward to this offseason that just never came to fruition. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about this is before, obviously, we saw Cody Ford lining up at right guard to start practices, but we were like, hey, Forrest Lamp versus Cody Ford at left guard could be good competition. Throw Ike Bucker into the mix, and then obviously we draft a guy like Jack Anderson. We figured, hey, he's going to be in the mix for maybe a starting role, but as it turns out, maybe the Chargers knew more than all of us did, obviously, when they didn't re-sign him after he started 16 games for them last year. And the fact that they didn't re-sign him maybe should have been a red flag to us. I mean, we sat here in the offseason and kind of justified why it was a good signing, and I still don't necessarily think it was a bad signing. I think it was a good signing. I mean, you're taking a chance on guys, and Bean's known to do that, right? To swing for some of these guys that have high upside, low cost of investment. And it just didn't work out. It doesn't always work out, and that's fine. But the more you swing, the more likely you are going to get a hit. So, and Scott says, I thought IR prior to the season over all season.
That is true. That is correct. Yeah. But what you can do is you can work out an injury settlement with the player and essentially release the player. So that's probably what's going to happen with Forrest Lamp, because even though he's got a calf injury, my guess is it's not a torn calf or anything like that. It's probably just like, all right, you've missed all of training camp. You're not going to make this football team. We're putting you on injury reserve because he is a vested veteran, meaning they can't injure him. So they put him on IR. They'll probably work out an injury settlement, and that'll free him up to sign with any football team he wants to once he's healthy. Now, the Buffalo Bills, and again, this was Chris Janke who was giving me this information on Twitter this afternoon. So thank you, Chris. The Buffalo Bills did this with Sonoris Perry a couple of years ago, where the Buffalo Bills brought Sonoris Perry back midseason after releasing him with an injury settlement during training camp. So even though if you're put on IR prior to the season, you're done. If you come to an injury settlement, you're technically released from the football team. Now, you can't re-sign, I think, with your original team right away, but you can sign with other teams right away, or other teams when you're healthy. And then after a certain amount of time, I don't know that certain amount of time, after a certain amount of time has matriculated, you can re-sign with that team that actually cut you. So yes, in theory, you're right, Scott, but also there are ways around that. But all I'm saying is that if I was a betting man, I think Forrest Lamp's days as a Buffalo Bill are over. My guess is you see him signing somewhere in 3-4 weeks when he's 100% recovered. He ends up on someone's practice squad, or it's 6 weeks. Thank you, Chris. So it's 6 weeks. So the Buffalo Bills could re-sign Forrest Lamp by week 5 or whatever, or week 4, if they come to an injury settlement like this week. But what was I trying to say? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But thank you, Chris. I do appreciate it. My guess is 3 weeks from now, you'll see him sign with Chicago Bears or the Cincinnati Bengals or some other team that has the Oakland Raiders, some other team that has no offensive lineman, either to the practice squad and then be called up rather quickly, or just straight up signed to someone's roster, because he is a quality football player. Richard Rush comes in, but the injuries are the issue. Richard Rush comes in and says, when is Hart's release? So we all want to know. He's probably going to play a ton in that last preseason game, because I don't think you're going to see Deion Dawkins, Darrell Williams. Spencer Brown and Tommy Doyle both got hurt but thankfully both were back at practice today. And so Bobby Hart, there's still a chance that Bobby Hart could make this football team if the Buffalo Bills want a veteran tackle. We're hoping that doesn't happen. We're hoping it's Spencer Brown. We're hoping it's Tommy Doyle, or it's just Spencer Brown and Tommy Doyle goes to the practice squad. But let's take this opportunity to talk about Spencer Brown a little bit, because Spencer Brown had himself a nice little day before his injury. He lined up and I was shocked by this because, I made the comment, like, he hasn't been at right tackle all training camp. Deion Dawkins is suddenly back and you're going to move him over to right tackle. You might be doing him a disservice, but sure enough, Darrell Williams didn't play. It was Spencer Brown at right tackle going mano-a-mano versus Khalil Mack. And he had himself a nice day. Brian says, "Are you nuts, Judge? Hart cannot make this team." I agree with you, but crazier things have happened. Remember Connor McDermott? He was on this team for quite a long time. Okay. Some GMs just see games played and think that's a good enough statistic for rostering a guy, especially on the offensive line. But at the same time, Spencer Brown looked really solid against Khalil Mack as a right tackle. His pass protection improved. He's the kind of guy, I think his physical ability, if he has to start this year, I think just like Gregory Rousseau, his physical ability is going to help him keep his head above water, even if he might not be 100% ready. Even if he might not be 100% ready from like a mental standpoint or a developmental standpoint. What are your thoughts on Spencer Brown's day?
I'm going to bring up Don's comment here. It says Spencer learned from the week before. He was great. And this is a thing that I think we all figured was possible with Spencer Brown. We knew it was well documented, the work he did with Staley, obviously, in the offs. He's a guy that's going to learn quickly. He's going to put in the work. He's a guy that you feel confident that if he makes a mistake, he's going to learn from that mistake and correct it. And he's not going to make the same mistake twice a lot of times, right? He's still a rookie and he will make mistakes, but I feel like he will be a quick learner, much like we've heard many reports about Rousseau being a quick learner. I think on the flip side of the line, the offensive side of the line, Spencer Brown is showing that as well. And I think it's a great sign that he flipped over to right tackle, went up against Khalil Mack, and really improved. And Pierre's exactly right. It was very good. He could be dominant. Like, these are flashes we're seeing in preseason, but we also have to pay attention to who he was playing against. And he was playing against one of the best. So if he can continue to kind of make strides like that, he is going to be either the future right tackle of this team, or he's going to be easily the backup swing tackle this year, and we're not going to have to worry about it. And this was in the Bills' plan, being said as much when we drafted him. His goal for Spencer Brown was to be the swing tackle backup for 2021. But if something were to happen to Dawkins or Williams, you don't feel quite as nervous about Spencer Brown's prospects of potentially having to fill in for them after what you've seen in just 2 games really so far.
Yeah. We got Pierre coming in saying Anderson played better, had a few great blocks. Tommy Doyle played better as well. It'll be really interesting to see. Like, I think Tommy Doyle is going to end up making this roster as the 4th tackle. It'll be really interesting to see if Tommy Doyle gets cut, if Jack Anderson gets cut. Like, the Buffalo Bills cut Ike Butker a couple of years ago, and Ike Butker got snagged, and we lost Ike Butker. So it'll be really interesting to see, like, if we do have to make the difficult decision to cut a Jack Anderson, which is looking super likely, or we have to make the decision to cut Tommy Doyle, which is a lot more iffy, whether we can get those guys onto our practice squad. Once we get them onto our practice squad, they'll probably be one of those 4 protected guys, or at least Doyle would be if Doyle gets onto the practice squad. Maybe Anderson wouldn't be because we want to protect a couple other players. Before we still got a whole bunch of things to talk about here, jumping around our notes. Before we jump to the next topic, though, the injury bug, Harrison Phillips looks like he's going to be week to week. We've already talked about him a little bit at the top of the show. Dane Jackson suffered an injury, didn't practice today. Day to day, that could open the door for Nick Mcleod. We're going to talk about that next. Spencer Brown, Tommy Doyle back at practice. Marquez Stevenson, x-rays on his foot negative, but did not practice today. Diggs and Sanders were back at practice. Isaiah Hodgins was back at practice. Jaquan Johnson was not. We still have to talk about third safety as well. Antonio Williams was. Tommy Sweeney was not. So again, guys like Jacob Hollister, guys like Isaiah McKenzie, guys like Tywan Jones, guys like Matt Breida or Tyrell Adams, the Buffalo Bills do decide to keep them on the football team, you could see them cut on the cut down day in order to put Isaiah Hodgins on IR, Marcus Stevenson on IR, Jaquan Johnson on IR, Tommy Sweeney on IR, Dane Jackson, Harrison Phillips. The Buffalo Bills could use those guys, cut them with a deal like Andre Roberts and Dean Marlowe last year to come back, eat a little bit of dead cap from their roster bonus, and move some of those guys to IR. So just keep an eye on the injuries over the next couple of weeks, and guys who don't get back might actually make the roster, just so we can IR them. So that'll be really interesting. It would be really unfortunate for Isaiah Hodgins if we had to shut him down again for another full season. That would really suck, but it looks like he's coming back to practice again this week. So let's talk
is he on the outside looking in at this point to make the team?
At this point, you can't justify putting him on this roster. To the point where, like, if you lose him to waivers, you lose him. You just hope that he sort of gets lost in that shuffle. Like, if you have to waive him on the day where everyone gets cut, you just really got to hope he gets lost in that shuffle, right? Didn't exactly do anything in the preseason because he's been injured. Most GMs are just going off of like their scouting reports on him, et cetera, from a year where there wasn't too many scouting notes. So you could see him play more week 3 because it looks like he could be back in practice, but it'll be really interesting to see. But he's 100% on the outside looking in. Speaking of maybe not being on the outside looking in, as much as we've talked about Dane Jackson this offseason, and we're going to get to Reggie Gilliam too. We still got a ton of stuff to talk about. Nick Mcleod had an interception this week. He looked good. He looked good against Detroit. Wild Goose looked markedly better against Chicago. Dane Jackson was only a 7th round pick. Wild Goose was a 6th round pick. Nick Mcleod, a UDFA. Pretty much all a wash at the end of the day. It's who performs in practice and in games. Could we see Dane Jackson be cut and put back on the practice squad, or attempted to put back on the practice squad, and a guy like Nick Mcleod or even Rashad Wild Goose make the active 53 over Dane Jackson, even now with the injury?
I mean, it's possible. I think we talked about a couple times during the offseason, what's the path of least resistance for position to make this team. Corner was one of them. Didn't necessarily think it would be Dane Jackson that they'd be replacing, but Saran Neal, Dane Jackson, maybe there's a spot there for one of these guys like a Wild Goose or a Mcleod. And they have, Mcleod did have that interception. They played well. He played well. And Wild Goose, I thought, was not very good against Detroit, but you're right. He was better against Chicago. And we know he's got that speed, which a lot of the guys in that room don't, right? Like, the fact of the matter is that corner room overall is lacking speed. So if the Bills feel like, hey, we can get a gunner out of this position group and we can get a guy with speed that we knew was raw coming in, we knew that. We knew he was very aggressive. He was very handsy. But if they can coach that out of him, and we've said multiple times on this show that we feel like the Bills can coach the most out of maybe that position group than they can for any other position group, then maybe there is a chance that Wild Goose or Mcleod could make the team. And if the Bills purely look at what they have as not necessarily how long they've been with the team and just purely on this guy was a 7th round pick, 6th round, whatever, then yeah, of course, there's a chance. It's going to sting because of the way they kind of talked up Dane Jackson and Bean mentioning him specifically by name in the offseason. It would sting for that to happen, but that's just the reality of the situation that we could see it. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Dane's still going to be at worst the CB3, I'll say, behind Levi, but there's always a possibility. And Pierre says the best evaluators are never married to players. Mcleod is outplaying many while Dane is not wild at all. And he's right. He's right about that.
In games, he's right, though, but we don't see what's going on in practice. So,
true.
Again, Dane Jackson had some good early practices. He kind of disappeared. And then there were some reports as early as last week before this Bears game that he was having good practices again. So, again, necessarily, we hear what the Sal Capacios and the Matt Perinos and the Joe B's have to say, the Thad Browns have to say, but we don't really know what's going on, and we can't really evaluate for ourselves what's going on the practice field. So I will say that I think Dane Jackson is still the front runner, but come cut down day, if come cut down day if Rashad Wildgoose makes the team over him or Nick McLeod. That's not something I'm going to bat an eye at and be great, be like, what? Wow, that came out of nowhere. But Brian Bowers says, does Dane Jackson seems like he's regressed? I don't think so. Was he a guy that stood out? Was he a guy that stood out at all last training camp? Was he a guy who stood out at all last preseason? No, he seems like the same guy he was. Like, he really does. He seems like a guy who just shows up in games, and he's gotten some run in the preseason. He looked good in the Bears game. He looked fine in the Lions game. Like, everyone wants to talk about how the one throw went over his head, but we've talked time and time again on this show how it was a cover two. It was the safety's responsibility to be covering Tyreek Williams, and it was, and he was covering the running back in the flat. What has Dane Jackson done in the preseason that's bad? He hasn't done anything in the preseason that's bad. So, like, if he's putting up decent, impressive practices against Stephon Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley, his job is probably safe no matter what Nick McLeod does against third stringers in the preseason, right? So, again, it wouldn't. What I'm going to say is the performance of these two guys in the preseason means I won't be shocked if Dane Jackson doesn't make it, but I still think, where did he get smoked? I think Randy's being sarcastic there, but like, someone tell me a play where Dane Jackson got beat this preseason. Someone tell me a play. So, unless someone can tell me a play where he got beat, I think it might be a moot point, and what's going on in that practice setting might be more important than maybe what's going on in those games. But Nick McLeod has been impressive, and when you get an interception in the preseason, that sticks out. And then people go and look at your tape, and then people see what they like, and they might put you on their team instead of being able to sneak you onto the practice squad. So it's one of the things that really stinks about the preseason, but is also really awesome about the preseason. While we're on the topic of DBs, the final safety spot, Jaquan Johnson's hurt, still not practicing. Damar Hamlin looked really good against Chicago. Your boy Damar was all over the place. And then Josh Thomas, like, he didn't play bad, but he was just kind of invisible against Chicago. Definitely had a better game against Detroit. To me, it's still Hamlin and Johnson, with an outside chance that maybe Johnson gets waived, injured, and IR'd, and you see Josh Thomas. What are your thoughts on how that third safety spot is playing out?
Well, Hamlin has definitely made me feel happy about my showing so much love for him during the draft process and obviously afterwards, and being happy that he's on the team. I've really liked him. He's always around the ball. He's smart. We knew that coming in, that he was going to be a guy that didn't really wow you in any one area, but was solid just all around. And he's got to be the third guy right now in my mind. So it comes down to the fourth spot. And is it going to be Jaquan Johnson, the guy who's been in the system for a couple years, who also had an interception his rookie year, I think, in the preseason as well? Or is it going to be a guy like Josh Thomas, who maybe gives you a tiny bit more on defense than a guy like Jaquan Johnson? So the question you have to ask yourself is, if you're the Bills, how much are these guys really going to play? I mean, we know Dean Marlowe played about 200 snaps last year, I think 230 or so, and that's likely going to fall on the shoulders of Hamlin, right? If it's it's probably not going to be that many, right? I would imagine it's going to be fewer than what Marlowe played last year, but I think maybe around 100, 150 snaps potentially for Hamlin defensively. And then the fourth guy is really going to be special teams almost exclusively. So which of those guys between Jaquan Johnson and Thomas is really going to give you the most there? And I'd have to say that Johnson has the edge, has the edge there. So again, I'll give the edge to the guy who's been there and who's been the special teamer for the team for the last 2-3 years. So that's kind of how I see it right now. But like you said with the corners, like, it wouldn't surprise me if Josh Thomas made the team over Jaquan Johnson, but I got to think right now Hamlin's pretty close to being lock for this team.
Yeah. Matt's bias comes in and says, are we scheming for specific teams during the preseason, or just balling? They're just balling. Like, you're not going to see a lot of, I haven't seen a lot of like design blitzes from the Buffalo Bills where they send a linebacker or anything like that. There was a couple of times where they like A-gap AJ Epinesa, which was fun. Like, just A-gap blitzing with AJ Epinesa was fun, watching him line up over defensive tackles offensive guards while standing. Like that was a really fun thing to see. I made the comment on Twitter. It sort of took off. Like AJ Epinesa looks very Aaron Schobel out there, and it's really cool to see that. Like I'm not necessarily saying that's a comp for AJ Epinesa, but when I see him running out there like that and getting at the quarterback, they kind of look a little similar too. I just get flashbacks to Aaron Schobel, who was like one of my favorite players. So a lot of fun seeing that. But yeah, no, Matt, they're not designing a lot of things, which is why Dane Jackson looked like a fool in that Detroit game when they were playing cover 2, because it was his job to cover the flat where the running back was, and it was the safety's job to come over the top. And typically someone's blitzing Jared Goff. Goff's noodle arm can't get the football to Tyreek Williams because there's a guy in his face, but because we're not blitzing, he can plant his feet and he can throw the football, and he hit Tyreek Williams in between the corner and the safety in that cover 2. That is that, I guess. And Randy Schobel, what? Tell me I'm wrong. And come on, no one saw him play and was like, yeah, I get some Aaron Schobel vibes from him. I liked it. I'm going with it, Randy. I'm going with it. All right. So while we're on DBs, looking through my notes here, Tim Harris, the Buffalo Bills signed Tim Harris and Kareth White when they waived Duke Williams and when they IR'd Forrest Lamp today. So even though we have to cut down to 5 by tomorrow, we still added 2 players. So it means that they're probably going to be cutting down at some other positions. It looks like Kareth White is probably here because we're not going to be playing a lot of starters. It seems like maybe Tim Harris is here because of some injuries in the defensive backfield. But both of these guys are interesting. Tim Harris, 6'2", 197. He's got an 8+ RAS score. According to Lance Zierlein and his NFL.com draft profile, rare size, speed, explosiveness, and a plus tackler. His downside is instincts, like delayed reads, things of that nature. So a physical freak who might not have it all between the ears. Sounds a lot like Saran Neal to me, but an interesting body guy who might have a chance for the practice squad. And then another guy that seems really interesting is Kareth White, who was Devin Singletary's backup at FAU. He's actually drafted in the 6th round. I remembered back to the draft that year, him and watching some of his videos and reading a lot of his draft profiles. 4.37 40, kick return ability. Could a guy like Kareth White possibly give Antonio Williams a run for his money on the practice squad? Because he's got some potential. He's got some pop. Chris DePrasco was pretty high on him last preseason when he was with the Chicago Bears.
Hope there's no Antonio Williams truthers in the comment section right now. Yes, I think there's a chance that both of them maybe, right? If let's say a guy like Breida doesn't make the team, right? And the Bills end up saying, we're going to keep 2 running backs on the active, well, 3 if you count Tywan Jones. We're going to keep 3 running backs. We're going to get rid of Breida. Kareth White and Antonio Williams on the practice squad, then in that scenario makes sense to me, because then you have an option for a speed guy or a return, like guy with some return ability, and you have kind of like this more of a power guy, like a Zach Moss type guy in Antonio Williams. So, and he got Kumro right in the video.
That one isn't that hard. Kareth White, like it's spelled weird, but it still phonetically looks normal.
Yes. So in that scenario,
Kareth Wheat.
Well, the Bills PR even gave the pronunciation when they did the press release, so that was nice of them.
I didn't even read that.
Yeah,
I never read that. That gets you into trouble, Bruce and Clay. Obada. Never trust those things.
I've never called it Obada. Never called him Obada. Maybe is that what they said it was? Obada?
So Bruce and Clay were calling Emmanuel Agba Emmanuel Agba F.A. Obada F.A. Obada because that's, I guess, phonetically how it was spelled when the Bills signed him on the thing. But then Bills PR came out and were like, yeah, no, sorry, we were wrong. So Bills PR led him astray.
Well, I like Kareth White. I think there's a chance that he could be on the practice squad. Yes. I think that for me, he's direct competition, or he's more of competition for Breida's type of role. And then if Breida wasn't in the picture, I could see them going with, like I said, the 3 running backs on the active roster and having him and Antonio on the practice squad. But it's going to be a long shot. It could just be that he's just here to grind the downs in this 3rd preseason game so no one else gets injured. We've seen that as well. So we'll see.
Yes, we see Pierre coming in saying, could the Bills go 3 running backs with Gilliam as the emergency, Moss being one of the 4 kept? LOL. Here's my thing is I think that what we've seen from Reggie Gilliam has made some people, and I just seem to be disagreeing with Pierre a lot. Me and Pierre are probably going to here, Pierre, me and you can arm wrestle at the golf tournament and you can kick my ass in that. So we can feel bad because me and you are disagreeing with everything. But I think Reggie Gilliam might be a little bit overhyped. Now, Reggie Gilliam has shown versatility, fullback, tight end, 4-phase special teamer. I think he's going to make this football team. It's definitely easier to predict him on this roster now that Tommy Sweeney's likely to go to IR because Tommy Sweeney's not going to be healthy. I think he's the perfect TE3, fullback 1, 4-phase special teamer. It allows the Bills to keep 2 tight ends and keep other players like Marcus Stevenson as wide receiver 7 or a 6th linebacker or 11th defensive lineman. I think Reggie Gilliam is that perfect versatile guy. I don't know if he's a running back, right? Like I get that. Like we were in preseason, Antonio Williams and Christian Wade were hurt, and you don't want to risk Taiwan Jones to injury because he's your best gunner. They were literally only running the football with Reggie Gilliam outside of the goal line because they didn't want to get anyone else. I'm not saying there's not a role for Reggie Gilliam. Matt Perino was commenting on Brian Dable's comments on Pardon My Take. Brian Dable and Josh Allen sat down with the Pardon My Take guys. Awesome listen. Sit down and listen to it. And it seemed like Brian Dable does want to use the fullback a little bit more this year. We could see Reggie Gilliam play like a Kyle Hughes role. I'm not saying he's going to be as vital and as every down a player as Kyle Hughes, but the dude can play special teams and the 5-6 plays a game, come in there and play some kind of versatile fullback role. That's awesome. But that's what he is. I don't think he's a running back, right? Like you have Taiwan Jones. Is he really our best gunner? Yes. To Heath Farwell, the coordinator, he's an elite gunner in the National Football League. And Neil are an elite tandem. Oh, like when special teams coordinator of your football team, and then you have Leslie Frazier saying he tells the guys every year on defense, become Heath Farwell's best friend if you want to make this football and you're not a starter. And Heath Farwell's out there singing the praises of and so like to me, those two are gonna be the gunners on week 1 of this football team. Like it's to me, Reggie Gilliam is nothing more than a 4-phase special teamer, not a gunner because he doesn't have that speed, and a guy who can chip in at tight end and fullback, and that's okay because it's going to save us that 3rd tight end roster spot, and he's going to play a vital role on this football team, even if it's a smaller role. It's not as wasteful as Lee Smith, right? So. I think he's got a role in this football team. So we are an hour and 7 minutes into the I don't think we have even mentioned Mitch Trubisky's name yet, which is crazy to me, right? So Money Mitch out there, his touchdown pass to Jay Kumro was just, so I think it was Pardon My Take again on Twitter saying that, Pierre says, forget what Heath says. Do you see him as our best gunner? I'd argue it's Neil. I mean, it's a wash to me. I have no idea what I'm looking at. I just go off of what other people say when it comes to gunning. I'm not a gunning expert, but Saran Neal has always stuck out to me on TV more than Taiwan Jones. Taiwan Jones kind of just blends in, but hey, it's whatever. Someone says fix your internet. Is my internet bad tonight?
It's a little spotty. It's a little spotty, but it's okay. I mean, it's largely okay.
All right.
They expect perfection from you because you bring the perfection so often that
I will make sure I plug into the modem and get my NordVPN for the next show. I'm just going off of Wi-Fi tonight. But we got Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, the dude just absolutely was killing it. Like I said, 19 first downs in the first half. I mean, it wasn't perfection, right? Like two of those throws to Kumro were you could call them Kumro drops, but you could also say they were high and outside, which is very difficult to catch when other players are playing man coverage. And he just looked good. And the national media is starting to catch on that Mitchell Trubisky maybe isn't as bad as the Chicago Bears made him look, that Matt Nagy is maybe not a very good football coach. I think
I've never liked him.
A Chicago Bears beat writer said we should fire Matt Nagy today and replace him with Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll is almost guaranteed to become a head coach next football season, and Mitch Trubisky's probably going to be his quarterback. But what a day for Mitch Trubisky. What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's got to make you feel good as a Bills fan, right? To see that backup quarterback position is a position where you feel confident should something happen to Josh, you're going to be able to still win games. Like, I saw a lot of things on Twitter of people saying like the Bills backups with like Mitch and McKenzie. You might have even said this. So you were like the Bills backups with like Mitch and McKenzie and Kumro and Stevenson are like as good of an offense as like any other offense in the AFC East.
And Dan Fetz over at Channel 8 in Rochester said that Trubisky, Kumro, McKenzie, Davis, Singletary, Moss, Gilliam, with the offensive line that was out there, was better than the Buffalo Bills 2017 offense, which was Tyrod Taylor, Andre Holmes, like Jeremy Curley, Zay Jones, Kelvin Benjamin, Charles Clay. I think it was left to right, a rookie Dion, Vlad Dukas, Russell Bodine. I don't even remember who the right guard was. Ryan Groy.
Was John Miller still there?
John Miller was still around. Yeah, it was John Miller, and it was Jordan Mills. So,
God.
Yeah.
Why are you bringing me back to that?
Yeah, so I think I might have said Dan Fates, so I said his name wrong. He's not a player, doesn't count.
Speaking of Tyrod, I thought Justin Fields was giving me some Tyrod vibes. I don't know. He gave me some Tyrod vibes in that game.
So the one thing I wanted to say about Justin Fields, though, is Sal Capaccio in his thumbs up, thumbs down segment said that it was concerning to him that Justin Fields was running all over the Buffalo Bills. I would counter that by saying the Buffalo Bills are playing a lot of like basic base defense. The announcers made the comment on I've heard this comment on at least 10 preseason broadcasts that defensive coordinators are running way more man-to-man than they would run in the season because they want to see because they want to see DBs playing man coverage, and they want to scout their own players in the secondary, and it's easier to scout when they're playing man-to-man than zone, etc. When you run in man-to-man, you're turning your back to the quarterback, and if you're not blitzing, you don't have a spy out there, etc. You're not playing zone. Of course, Justin Fields is going to have a lot of running lanes. I don't think you'd have those running lanes if it was the regular season. So if you're a Bills fan, I wouldn't be too concerned about Justin Fields running all over you. I don't think that's something we have to be too concerned about from a mobile quarterback this year, at least not yet, because the Buffalo Bills were playing that and someone comes in here and says Terrell Pryor. I think Justin Fields was probably the second best quarterback. Or, I'm sorry, the third best quarterback of this draft behind Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. I really like Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is going to be a really good quarterback in the National Football League. I feel bad for him that Matt Nagy is the offensive play caller. I hope that Ryan Pace gets fired this offseason. I hope that Andy Dalton takes all the punishment for the shitty Bears team this year, and Justin Fields never sees the field. And
hey,
hit the reset button.
Why the shot at Andy Dalton? He's done nothing to you.
He's not a good quarterback anymore.
I mean, but he's not. He's only done nice things for us. Like he hasn't done anything.
Dude, did you watch that football game? It was hard to watch. 0 for 5 on third down. The only good play he made the entire game was he chucked the ball up to Adams, who ran it for a touchdown because DeMar Hamlin didn't come over and Saran Neal didn't turn his head around. Saran Neal turns his head around. Andy Dalton is got 40 yards throwing and no touchdowns and no first downs in that first half.
Saran Neal wasn't in bad position on that play. Actually, it didn't look like he was. He
just didn't turn his head. So
yeah,
I know he ended the drought. Okay, I understand that. That doesn't mean he's a better quarterback.
I will agree with you on Pace and Nagy. Nagy, I always thought was overrated. I never thought he was that good of a head coach, and he lived on that insane defense the Bears had that first year he was there. And then we all know what happened with the double doink with Parkey and all that. Pace has made questionable move after questionable move since being the GM of that team. He's lucky that he still has Allen Robinson on that team after all the crap that he's been through with that team. Criminally underrated every year. He's one of the best receivers in the league. Anyway, not to get too sidetracked, this guy, Bigfoot Anthropologist, says trade Jake to Atlanta. He's from Georgia. Nice.
Well, here was the next thing I was going to bring up. Jake Fromm and Davis Webb, it's hard to assess them with how bad the offensive line is in the second half of these football games. We thought the offensive line was going to be better. It hasn't been, mostly because the tackles have been a turnstile. But I'm just not buying the Buffalo Bills keeping a third quarterback on the active game day roster. Like, I think they're both going to get cut. And
like, you're changing your tune on that. I like that.
Yeah. And then that's going to be one of my differences we talked about observing the preseason and making our changes later on. That's gonna be one of my changes, but it was I think Davis Webb makes it to the practice squad over Jake Fromm. So maybe you try to get what you can from Jake Fromm, right?
Yeah. Well, Davis Webb didn't have his best game.
I mean, none of them did.
Yeah, I know. But I wouldn't say he was riding high after the Detroit game. That's probably a little too much praise. But man, he was not good in that last game. Jeffrey Danger said, let Fromm go, keep Webb. I think that's what you were saying, right? Yeah. Webb on the practice squad. Look, at this point, there's really not going to be a market for Jake Fromm, I don't think, in the trade market. Like, if you can get a conditional 7th rounder for him.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, Atlanta's backup quarterback is AJ McCarron, who has looked like hot ass this preseason. Let me pull up AJ McCarron's numbers against the Miami Dolphins, who curb stomped the Atlanta Falcons. Good for you, Miami. Atlanta's going to be real bad this year. AJ McCarron he was 3 for 6 for 43 yards. Good for him. And then in the other preseason game, he was AJ McCarron was, and I don't think they're going to roster Felipe Fangs. He's got practice squad written all over him. In the 23-3 loss to the Tennessee Titans, Arthur Smith, that's rough. AJ McCarron was 5 for 12 for 36 yards, a pick, and 2 sacks. So maybe there is something to Jake Fromm to Atlanta. I just recently downloaded Madden and started my franchise mode in the new Madden 22, which is Madden 21. It sucks. It's the same game.
Yeah, it's hot ass, as you say.
I actually traded Jake Fromm to Atlanta for a 7th round pick. So who knows? Maybe Madden can come reality.
Well, considering how bad they got the player models,
dude. So the picture of Spencer Brown, it's a black guy when Spencer Brown is white. Jack Anderson's picture is of like an historic NFL player. Like, they just have the wrong photographs for half of the Buffalo Bills. For half the Bills roster,
it's bad.
The for half the Bills roster, the pictures are wrong. And I don't understand, like, Josh Thomas is either going to make this football team or be a priority practice squad guy. I get it's Josh Thomas from Appalachian State. I understand that, but you're fucking professionals. It is your job to have the roster locked and loaded. I get that you have to make cut downs because you can only have 75, not like 85 or whatever. But the fact that Josh Thomas wasn't on your Buffalo Bills 75-man roster when you made this football game and he wasn't available as a free agent, and if I wanted Josh Thomas on my team, I'd have to create a player or wait for a roster update 3 weeks from now. That's sad, dude. Like,
why do they only allow 75 anyway? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Also true. So whoever was sent from Madden to the Buffalo Bills training camp to scout training camp clearly had his head up his ass and wasn't like watching. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy how inept they are and how they get away with being so inept year after year.
That's what happens when you have the only rights to make a simulation game. That's what happens. We need 2K back.
You have the guy in charge of quarterback rankings openly coming out on Twitter and saying that wins are a quarterback stat. He was like, yeah, but because they were arguing back and forth about Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers' rankings. And the guy from EA was literally like, yeah, but who won last year in the NFC Championship game? It's like, are you serious? Aaron Rodgers was the MVP of the league last year. Tom Brady went on a heater in the playoffs and won the Super Bowl because that's just what Tom Brady does. It doesn't make him a higher overall than Aaron freaking Rodgers.
Does that mean that like Joe Flacco, when the Ravens beat the Niners, should have been like the highest rated quarterback in the game? Like, give me a freaking break. God, this is why I won't buy the game anymore. Like, I just won't.
I buy it just for the roster update because I'm a sucker and I like to pretend to be an armchair GM and play the franchise mode. But
I was you like 5 years ago, and I just got fed up with it. I got fed up with it.
I turned into an adult.
Well, there are other things out there that if you want to be an armchair GM, there's other things besides Madden that you can do. There's like GM like simulation type stuff you can do. But yeah, I mean, the game is just, for me, it got to the point where the gameplay to me was so bad with the animations and like everything. It just didn't feel like you were playing a football game. It felt like you were like just doing like a button combination and timing like that worked every time. And I had found myself just doing the same plays over and over again. And I'm like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
It's not for me.
I run the same variation of like 5 different plays. I was playing Caveman from Built in Buffalo. We were doing a Madden simulation a couple of weeks ago. And I got off to a real hot start running the same variation of 5 plays. Got up to like a big like 14-0 lead. And then he realized I was running the same combination of 5 plays. And then he kicked my ass in the second half. The only thing I have left in my notes is Matt Hawk. Tyler Bass, kudos Tyler Bass, still making field goals. But Matt Hawk showing that inconsistency. I said on Thursday's show, like, I want to see Matt Hawk be consistent. I want to see that game to game consistency. And sure enough, first punt, he just shanked it. So all I'm going to say is I hope the Buffalo Bills once again lead the league in lack of punting. That's all I'm going to say. And then Chris asked if we're going to take questions. So now that the Matt Hawk thing is over, whatever you guys want to talk about, my note sheet is officially all struck through. So we are now into the open discussion portion, and we got Rico in the house too as well. He says, "What up, fellas? How you doing?" We're doing good, Rico. We were 200 strong, and then Rico comes in and we dipped under 200. So I don't know. Maybe that's a coincidence. I don't know.
Maybe he started his own show and stealing our viewers.
He just started his own show and is stealing our viewers. So whatever you guys want to talk about, let us know. You know, we're an hour 21 in. We can go for another 10, 15 here. But is Bass making all pro coming in from Mr. Diggs? He's got a shot, man. And I said this on the last show. He could be one of those guys that's a real feather in Brandon Beane's cap 15, 20 years down the road. Like, if this team does what we expect this football team to do, if Josh Allen turns into what we expect Josh Allen to turn into, and I mean, this is just an absolute way down the road, way looking ahead, way overhyping type of thing. But 15, 20 years down the road, when a guy like Brandon Beane, if the Buffalo Bills do what we fans think they're capable of, is getting that Hall of Fame consideration or whatever. Drafting a kicker in the 6th round who's with your team for 10 to 15 years and is stupid ass consistent is one of those feathers in your cap, right? Like, I think Bill Polian was responsible for like Mike Vanderjack. So those are some of the things that can really be a feather in your cap in like the 6th round. So it should be interesting. And I guess Rico came in with a question. Is Kumro still a lock? We hit that at the top of the show. In my opinion, he's still a lock. I'm now on team 7 wide receivers because, and Rico, what I was saying earlier was Isaiah McKenzie, even though he muffed the punt against the starting special team units of the Chicago Bears, he still had 2 very impressive punt returns. The Buffalo Bills, he's their gadget guy. He's their end around guy. The Buffalo Bills are not going to roster Isaiah McKenzie and Marquez Stevenson, have Marquez Stevenson return punts and then give you no other value, and then have Isaiah McKenzie be your gadget guy and your backup slot. Like, to me, they're redundant. Jay Kumro plays a different role on special teams. He gives you a different vibe as a backup on offense. He's got that inside-outside versatility. So, to me, the 6 wide receivers to me are still set in stone. But Marquez Stevenson has done the 2 things you want Marquez Stevenson to do. He beat somebody deep in that Detroit game, and he returned a punt for a touchdown in that Chicago game. So he has given the Buffalo Bills all the ammunition they need to keep that 7th wide receiver. Don't risk losing him. Make him inactive every week. If McKenzie flubs up or gets injured, you have a guy there. If Emmanuel Sanders has to miss a game because of his foot injury, or Stephon Diggs has to miss a game because of his knee injury, you have a guy inactive who you can activate to give you some speed on the outside. So to me, I'm team 7 wide receivers right now because I don't want to risk losing him, but I also think his skill set is a little redundant. But someone else up here said Stevenson's skill set is harder to replace than Kumro's. That's 100% true. So, like I said, I could be wrong, but I'm sticking with it. One thing we did miss, and Heather Hathaway's coming in with her predictions for the top 5 in NFL Top 100. Stephon Diggs was number 11, which was awesome. He said his favorite play was his block for Stephon Diggs in the 49ers game, which what a Buffalo response that was. His favorite play of the year wasn't even a catch.
Love that.
Such a me first player, right? That the Minnesota Vikings are claiming. But we want to talk about how Josh Allen, everyone wants to talk about how Stephon Diggs made Josh Allen. That's what all of the fans outside of Buffalo want to say. Oh, Stephon Diggs made Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs made Josh Allen. Well, Stephon Diggs just had his highest ranking in the NFL 100 that he's ever had by a mile with Josh Allen as his quarterback. And now Josh Allen is going to be top 10 in the NFL 100. So that'll be the interesting thing to see next weekend. I get that it's a popularity contest. It's voted on by the players. It doesn't mean jack shit, etc. Like whatever. I understand that, but where do you think Josh Allen lands in this NFL top 100, in this top 10? You think he gets top 5?
The cynic in me says he'll be number 10, but but I think he deserves to be higher. Like I think he deserves to be ahead of Kelsey. I think he deserves to be, I mean, Mahomes, I think Mahomes would probably be number 1. Rodgers will be up there, probably number 2. I think as a quarterback, he deserves to be higher than guys like Kelsey, like guys like DeAndre Hopkins that are as a receiver. Like to me, the top outside of Aaron Donald, I would say like the top 4 out of the other 5 need to be the quarterbacks, right? It's got to be Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, and Allen, and then put Aaron Donald in the top 5. I'm not saying that's the order. I'm just saying like those should be the top 5. But I can see a situation where this top 10 gets revealed and they put Josh Allen number 10. Jeff King comes back and says, glad I jumped back on. Love hearing you drop the F-bomb and what makes life tolerable. Look, we all gotta release it sometime, right? But wouldn't it be such a as much as like Josh Allen's gaining momentum and getting the recognition from people now after finally putting together such a great season, there's still that little bit of contingency that just has these doubts about him. And that's where he comes in. Let's say he comes in at number 10. It's just going to be just another chip on the shoulder for him, right? To be like, well, I'm number 10. I'm behind Hopkins. I'm behind Kelsey. Like he should be top 5, but
oh yeah. And I think he ends up top 5. Because last year he came in at like 74 or something like that. And honestly, I don't think that Josh Allen might have even been a top 100 player based on his performance 2 seasons ago. Like he was very much like a game manager type of quarterback. But what did most of the players who voted for him said? Like, I just respect that dude's game. Like he's an absolute baller. They pointed to the Anthony Barr hurdle. They pointed to the 4th and 1 QB sneak against Dallas. They talk just about the way he runs the football and the way it's just so hard to tackle him and some of the throws that he makes. Like the players, and this is a player voted thing, have so much respect for Josh Allen's game. Like you see Ezekiel Elliott, like what was he playing Xbox or whatever on Twitch, talking about what a fucking beast Josh Allen was. Like players have mad respect for Josh Allen. So he was 87 last year, says Sheldon Cole. So a guy who maybe shouldn't have even been on the list last year made the list because the players have so much darn respect for him. Now he's got the numbers to back it up. He was the MVP runner-up. So just like Derrick Henry makes the top 10 of that list every year because the players just have so much freaking respect for how he plays the game as a running back, I think the players have a hell of a lot of respect for how Josh Allen plays the game as a quarterback. Now, I don't think it's enough to get him over Patrick Mahomes. I don't think it's enough to get him over Aaron Rodgers, but I think it will be enough to get him over Tom Brady. I think he'll be higher than Brady.
I'll put a wager on that. I won't. I don't think he'll be higher than Brady. You want to put a wager on that? I think the fact that Brady.
I wonder when the vote was too, because I know Brady showed up in the playoffs, but I wonder if the vote was like after the regular season or something too. So
yeah, I don't know.
I also don't know when they voted. Like Brady had an okay season and then got on a heater in the playoffs, right?
I know, but I'm just saying, like,
strung it together.
I know. I'm just saying, it would not surprise me. Actually, I would expect for Brady to be ahead of him, just based purely on how things go for Brady and how things go for the Bills, right? Like, that's just why I expect it. Scott comes in with a super chat. Thanks, Scott. He says, Judge, took me a while to warm up to your takes. Not that it changes your life, but really enjoy a lot as you both do great. And that's, sometimes it's an acquired taste.
I'm an acquired taste.
That's got to be like your new hashtag for your takes is like acquired taste.
Instead of acquired taste, how about acquired take? No,
there you go.
Acquired takes. I don't know if that works.
I mean,
but thank you.
It kind of works. It kind of works.
I appreciate it. I was telling the people in the BF family chat, I'm like I'm BF's version of like Colin Cowherd or Skip Bayless or Stephen A. Smith, but less likable.
I don't think so. I don't think Cowherd's not really unlikable. He's just kind of like changes his like he's a flip-flopper, right?
Oh, I flip flop all the time though, so it's perfect for me.
Oh, maybe. But what are we gonna bet though on this Brady versus Allen thing in the top 10?
I'm willing to play some bet down.
Okay.
First beer at the bar on Saturday night.
Okay, when is the top 10 getting revealed? Is it this week?
I think it's Saturday after the Packers game. So maybe first beer on the golf course Sunday.
All right, well, that's fine. I'll do that.
My father coming in saying it took him a while to warm up to me too. Yeah, it did. My dad didn't hug me or hold me for like the first 6 years of my life, which probably.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding. He was a very good father. I think we had a couple of comments about Tommy Doyle in his redshirt year. Tommy Doyle is going to be one of the really interesting cut down day players because, again, I go back to Ike Butker, and the Buffalo Bills thought they could cut Ike Butker in 2017, and they were wrong. And they lost out on Ike Butker, this player that they loved and they wanted to develop. Now, by happenstance, they were able to reacquire him the next offseason when the Kansas City Chiefs cut him. But that's something that might have sticked with Brandon Beane. I believe Joe B and Matthew Fairburn have made this comment before. Like, that could have been why Connor McDermott was on this Buffalo Bills football team for so long. That could have been why some other players were on this football team. So it should be interesting. I think Tommy Doyle makes a 53, but doesn't see a snap this year. To me, I think he ends up active roster redshirted.
You get those guys every year that make the team, and they're pretty much inactive every week, barring something crazy. And that screams Tommy Doyle to me this year. He's probably going to be on the team, but he's going to be inactive every week. I mean, there's always that last offensive lineman that's inactive. There's usually that last, linebacker that's inactive. He's going to be inactive if he makes the team. Show some love. Lewis H. Worm says, show some love. Like the vid, y'all. Yes, please do. I actually, we haven't really groveled for likes today. So maybe now's the time.
Yeah. And the Wyatt Teller, giving up on Wyatt Teller too early could also stick with him as well. And Chris Jenke, it wasn't the next offseason. They actually reacquired him mid-season when the Kansas City Chiefs got him. So thank you for that correction, Chris. But Brian Bowers, and that's what I love. Chris is the comment section ombudsman of the show. He's just always making sure we are we are correct. So thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Brian Bowers comes in and says, and I think we'll end with this here tonight because we're an hour 33 in. My wife usually waits to eat dinner on Monday and Thursday nights until I'm done. So she's probably stupid pissed right now. But Brian Bowers comes in and says, wait, Judge, till which game are you guys all going to? We are going to be in Buffalo this weekend for Bills Packers. I'm taking the red eye. You're probably coming up morning of, right?
Morning,
you're also on the
Saturday
East Coast.
morning.
Yeah.
Saturday morning I'm coming.
We'll be at Bills Packers. We will be going out. We haven't picked the location yet, but we'll be going out downtown Buffalo after the game. hitting up the bars. We're going to hammer out that plan tomorrow in a conference call with the rest of the BF guys, and we'll let you know on Thursday. And then we're going to be at the Harvest Hill Golf Tournament on Sunday. So yeah, Brian, dude, hit us up, man. If you're going to be in Buffalo this weekend, meet us out for the tailgate, meet us out at the bars after the game. I'll be more than happy to buy you a beer, my man. So appreciate that. But we also
you know what? If I win the bet with you, I want you to buy the beer for me. I want you to give it to Brian.
All right. And then we got Jeff King coming in saying, would love to hook up with all of you this year at a game. Obviously going to have to be later this season. Drinks are on me. Appreciate that, Jeff. Yeah. I don't know how many games I'll be able to make this year. I mean, to me, this seems like it's going to be a super special season. So my guess is I teach high school now, and my running joke right now is like I practically retired because teaching high school is so much easier than teaching elementary school. Like I was home at like 2:15 today. It was so easy. Like my job is just so much easier and less stressful now, teaching older children. So I might travel a little bit more. So I might make it home to Buffalo for another game. I get an entire week off for Thanksgiving, but I think we're in New Orleans on Thanksgiving weekend. But I'm going to try to come back for another game this year. So I'll let you guys know when I'm back for another game. And we'll try to meet up for that one as well. Cause I haven't been to the last Bills regular season game I was at was the week 17 Dolphins game where it was rain snowing and Matt Barkley. It was like the Matt Barkley, Duke Williams, all that stuff. So that was a miserable game. And that's why I'm team dome now. I want a freaking retractable roof because that game was miserable. Will Kendall be there? And will
it's a shame he won't be because he could have been our DD. He would have been our DD.
He could have been our DD. His mom could have driven us home.
Oh man.
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure. We are an hour 35 in. We want to thank each and every one of you guys in the comment section. You guys bring it each and every week. I mean, we had like 60 comments before the show even freaking started. You guys are awesome. If you could do us a favor, and if you haven't already, click that like button. It'll really help us out in the old algorithm, help us get some views on replay, boost us up on that old YouTube. Then hopefully we can get some more viewers on live as well as people start to figure out what we're all about here at the Air Raid Hour. Not that we haven't been on for 2 years already, but like, subscribe. If you want to, if you have a friend who you think might enjoy this type of twice a week debauchery, share, get them involved, and things are going to blow up, and it's going to get big this season. It's going to be a special season. I can't wait to enjoy it with each and every one of you. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, go Bills.
Go Bills.